Welcome to the Author Next Door,
where we talk writing, publishing, and the business behind the books.
This podcast is for writers who are a few steps ahead into the journey. Maybe you've published, maybe you're planning what's next, and you realize the questions aren't getting easier. They're just getting more interesting.
Sometimes it's just our fabulous selves. Sometimes we bring friends to the table, but it's always lived experience and information you can use.
So pull up a chair. The conversation starts now. Welcome to episode 55. I'm Cassie Newell, and I'm here with my co-host, Angela Haas. And this month, we're exploring romantic topics all month long because, well, Valentine's Day is coming up and we're romance authors. So it's February. So just kicking it off, Angela, what do you think romance teaches readers about love that other genres often avoid?
Well, everything. I think you have your own hero's journey in your love life, right? You start out on a quest.
Yeah.
Some
Sometimes you don't. Start on a quest, but it just happens too.
Right. Sometimes we refuse the call,
You refuse the call. I love it.
and then you do have, long, dark nights of the soul, and you come out and there's a happily ever after. There's pushes and pulls, and people run to each other and run away. And it's like its own little, hero quest.
Yeah, because other genres, especially thriller or action, right? They're dealing with the conflict and situation at hand, whereas romance really deals with character emotions, right? And fulfilling a good portion of character arcs. Other genres, you don't have to have a huge character arc at all, actually. It's better if you do because that gets reader investment. But I also think one thing it teaches readers about love is healing, because I don't think other genres really attach that, especially in really robust thrillers. Like, you're getting through that quest and it's not really about the trauma of death or other actions that are happening. That's like later off the page half the time, unless it's about character building. But at the end, there has to be a reprieve. And in romance, you're addressing it up front.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. With romance, you really learn a lot about like what it takes to fall in love. And you learn about how love can heal. I think the romances we're writing, we really like to explore the depth of emotion and healing through our writing. And that's
Yeah,
what makes it different.
sure. So, how has romance changed how you think about relationships or emotional boundaries?
I don't know that it totally has. I already had a understanding of that. I've had a lot of therapy, honey. Okay.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah, I have been through it all. So I think I already had that in my toolbox, but what I've learned actually through reading some romance is how I think you have to have character depth for the love to really stand out on the page. We have put books down where I felt like these two would never be together. There's no way, because I know about boundaries and I know what it takes to have a good relationship. So when I'm reading about two characters who actually aren't right for each other, it actually makes me put the book down. What do you
Interesting.
think? How has
Well,
it
that's so
changed?
interesting. No, not necessarily, because I'm like, well, what is that common thread? A lot of the time it's passion. In those types of books, it's more passion driven than anything in commonality, or it's the other person is helping the partner grow, which I kind of enjoy. So not necessarily, I won't put it down for those reasons, but yeah, I think it's interesting because for me, I think it's made me closer to my husband and like more open. And I can tell I have, just because I've read so much romance and now he's reading it too.
Okay.
um, I feel like we both have more empathy than we did, for couples that aren't like us, or that are different than norm in some ways. But I do think some of the emotional boundaries for me, I've realized what I will and won't read. And then I learned that I don't have like a huge boundary list. Like I am open to reading so much, but I do know when I get the ick factor and
Right.
I'm like, no, I tried. And then I'll slowly back out because I'm at that stage in my life where DNF, I'm sorry, I'll do it. I have precious time at this age where it's funny. My oldest daughter, who's very into romance, is like, but I gotta know. I can never DNF. And I'm like, that's on you. I'm moving on. I do think it's made me closer to my husband. I'm definitely more communicative, but I also think it's my age group. When I was growing up, it was like you didn't talk about sex. Maybe with your really close girlfriends, but it wasn't something that just was brought up. And there was definitely a male dominance to it that would lead that. And now there's a shift. There's so much more shift and empowerment for women.
Mhm.
Totally love, and I'm here for. But it was a very different time when I got married at 20, 22,
Right.
than where I am now
Yeah.
too, and 30 years of marriage. Happy anniversary to me
Happy
on
anniversary.
Valentine's Day. I don't know if you know that. I got married on
Oh,
Valentine's
yes, I remember.
Day. Yeah, I think that's how it's impacted me as a reader and a writer, just to be more empathetic too.
Yeah. We often draw on our life experiences
Yeah,
sometimes, right?
yeah,
To create our characters. And what I'm excited about this month is we're going to bring in a couple guests that are going to talk about real world concepts and how to weave that into your writing. I just remember walking Barnes and Noble and the self help books, right?
like
Were
this.
front and center. Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. We were all into these books, and people were really out to create the next self help empire. But some of those, even those older concepts, I still draw upon. I love talking about love languages. Like, what's your love language? And I know that I weigh heavily on different personality tests, like the Myers Briggs. A lot of people use Enneagram. And I was thinking of love, actually. Do you use love languages at all? What's in your self-help romance toolbox that you use?
Yeah. So I am number one relator. So characters come very easy to me and it's personality dominant. However, I don't have a lot of time in the short romance to really play in a different pattern to show you. I have to tell you. So, for example, in Buttercream and Second Beginnings, I have high school sweethearts,
Mhm.
and he left and went to college and ghosted her. And then he comes back into town, and he's a single dad. And he's like wanting to try to get back together. And she's like, you ghosted me. You just dropped me and had a child. Hello. So I had to show his acts of service and patience and not pushing her and not trying to constantly compliment her. That was going to not get him anywhere. And the personality I developed from her because I made her have a pretty strong backbone. Like, can you imagine being a woman and, thinking this is the love of your life? You've made all these plans. He goes to college away and, you're done and that's it.
Yeah.
That would
Oh,
be heartbreaking. So, yeah, he had to suffer a little bit and really grovel, and to show that he was in it and that he had changed and the reasons why he kinda ghosted her, which was shame on his part. He was like, "Oh my god, I had a one night stand.
yeah.
Now I have a daughter, and this person who is her mother couldn't handle being a mother."
Right.
So, I
Yeah.
had to pick it up. I think for me, that's kind of the place I draw from is I do use love languages to a certain extent, but I gravitate towards acts of service because I find it my love language, and so I tend to be able to write that a little bit more in terms of, like, kind of the praising piece. that tends to be more of a kink for me than an actual language, so I use it in those moments. But for me, it's really personality driven. If I'm gonna have a really, out there kind of character, like I did in Forbidden Love and Lattes,
Mhm.
which is Izzy, and she's just all in your face, high energy all the time, versus her twin sister who's not,
She
you
has some
know?
favorites.
Yeah. So, I think I'd go more personality based because I don't have a lot of room to show you out the situations I'm putting them in. So it's very personality based for me.
What I learned from Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, John Gray wrote it in 1982, and I remember there were TV shows, there's all kinds of spin-off books. And it basically examines how men and women have different empathy styles and different communication styles. And that for me was when the light bulb went on. And then do you remember that book, He's Just Not That Into You?
Remember the movie?
I read the book
Okay.
and I had just read it after a breakup and it was like, this is so freeing. Now, it's a lot of buzzwords and a lot of things that are a little extreme, but it actually helped me be like, oh, he just doesn't like me or he's just not into me. So I remember all those things. They're always in the back of my mind as far as, women and men communicate differently. And as much as we want to have the fantasy of this ideal man that we're creating and woman, they also are different, and they communicate different. And I think that's been fun for me is to come up with the differences too,
Yeah.
rather than how they're in love and compatible. It's like, how did they communicate differently and how does that complement? And then what conflicts can arise from that? But
Right. Exactly. Because
yeah,
it
but
can't,
no, that's
nobody
no
wants to
fun.
read that.
No one
You
wants to
need
read
to
that.
take us on a journey,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
We want a little bit of the soap opera.
Yeah,
And
we need
that's
the soap
yeah.
opera, the
Mhm.
drama, the conflict. I think that's why I love, like, the brother's best friend or the sibling's best friend trope, because if there's been a law laid down and you have broken that law, there are consequences, you know? So,
Perfect.
I kinda love that.
Yeah. No, it's super fun, but
Yeah,
that's the difference in writing at this age too, right? Because we've had so much of a foundation of learning about ourselves and how we are in relationships and the people we choose, people we
and our
grab.
girlfriends, and we've watched
Yeah.
them and
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. I
all
just
the things, right? It's
yeah,
just so
drama.
much more experience around seeing relationships.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
even the ones that seem perfect and
uh,
set, and
yeah,
sometimes they're really not behind closed doors. Um, yeah, it's really interesting the stages that you see as you experience life. And then just even in our parents, watching those relationships change as they get older too.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and we've known so many couples that after their kids flew the coop, they divorce. So
Yeah.
we're in that stage of like, holy crap, another one bites the dust. And then it makes you examine like your whole life with kids. Is it like, do we really love each other or are the kids keeping us from actually seeing each other and how we are in this relationship? And I've had some couples who have split up admit that to me that we poured all this energy into our child. Once they were gone and we didn't have those things and it was just us having dinner, we didn't know what to say to each other. And
Yeah. I
we
think
have
you have to rediscover your relationship and then put your I think for me and my husband in those situations, because we're definitely at that point in our lives, I was like, We don't talk about anything besides kids and
right,
like this. So I'm going to pull up some conversation cards. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Because I think too, you just get comfortable
we
with
do.
your quote roommate who's helping you parent and house. And then you've got to rediscover the relationship or rebuild it even or redefine it.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, I think
drama.
romance helps with that too.
Oh, I think so, and you kinda have to discover that spark, and I think if you still get butterflies, that's also
Yeah. I think too, as you get older, hormones play a big part of that, and sometimes it's not the lack of desire or want, so be mindful of that too. I don't write about that yet currently, but I'm sure at some point I will. But yeah, I think that's also true.
mhm. Yeah, for sure. So, w where do we think romance is headed? What do you
Yeah.
think the trends are in romance based on what I'm observing, like social media and just, when I do Google searches and things? I wonder if sports romance is slowing at all. I
Yeah,
wonder
I do.
if
I think so.
just
Mhm.
and I'm seeing billionaire now, the K-Lytics report said billionaire romance was just like going off the chart. So what are you seeing as far as trends as we kick off this
Yeah.
February of romance?
It's funny. I watched this great little short interview with Reese Witherspoon, and
Mm,
I think rom-coms are gonna come back. And I see it. I see the funny I know both of us are like, "Bring it." But I think rom-coms are gonna make a big comeback because we're in a time and a place that we don't see a lot of rom-coms on in movies or
yeah,
TV a whole lot,
totally.
um, outside of and I can't really call Hallmark a rom-com, that's just more cozy. I'm talking funny and, romantic and all the things that rom-coms provide in a situational trope aspect, and it's interesting because what she was saying in this interview is that our young men and women because they haven't had this, don't know how to react and talk in a relationship in fun ways. And they're missing it. And I was like, yeah, they never saw When You Were Sleeping. They never saw You've Got Mail and like all the rom-coms that we kind of grew up with.
Mhm.
And
Notice
currently
is
reading, I think Megan Quinn is really good at this. Tessa
yes,
Bailey's really good at this.
absolutely.
But I see a huge comeback and I see trad publishers buying up my little indie friends they're growing in this area. And I do. I think rom-coms are coming gonna make a comeback.
Yeah, I
'Cause
hope
I think we want that. I think we want the light, fluffy, I mean, it doesn't have to be fluffy, but entertaining, funny moments that set us apart in the real world. When it gets so dark all the time, I just
it's
think
dark.
it it I think there's healing and responses to dark that are fun and titillizing, but at the same time, I think we want that breakthrough moment where you just don't have to think and you can laugh and enjoy. Like, I think that's the world according to Cassie.
I think some of these are hot take moments. I don't know that they're actual trends, but there's people saying they're tired of duets, tired of first person point of view. I think that's a hot take moment.
Yeah, and personal preference. If you're tired of it, then go read a literary book, then you'll be tired of
Supposedly
those.
that's
And
part of
then
the
back.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, supposedly that's part of, like, the book talk roundup where they're talking about, like, the smut in romanticy. There's a little fatigue with that, and they want people to move away from first person point of view and
like, I don't have this aspect that it must be this way or that way, and I think when you pigeonhole creativity that way, that's unfortunate, really. But for me as a writer, I like writing in first person present tense because especially in short, because I can get you to feel, unless you're a brick wall, much quicker than I can in third person and in
right.
past tense. I
Yeah.
can't move as quickly.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, it really serves the story. And then from a novel perspective, I just was already in that space. And to switch my head space from that particular point of view would have killed me, although I didn't do dual at all. And we talked about that, I think, in a couple episodes back as to why, but I had a specific reason for the story purpose. So, yeah, I think it just has to be fit for the story.
And I like your story not written in dual as I'm reading it. Actually, I think I'm bonding faster with the main character because I'm just with her, you know?
Mhm.
So sometimes, and I say this and having to be mindful of it, I think when you switch, it's like, oh gosh, a shift. And that's taking you into
Yeah.
someone else's head. And so I think first person, especially if you really are trying to have the reader bond with your main character, I think it works. I think it can work, especially because you did have a message of wanting her journey to stand out more, so I really like
Yeah.
it. But I like knowing, see, it's my personality. I like knowing what's going on in this camp over here, and I
Yeah.
like the dual POV and romance because I'm like, "Ooh, how did the guy feel after the makeout
Right.
session?" You know?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. I like that too. I
yeah.
do too. Who knows? Maybe I'll be like, "Oh, let me write the book behind that." This particular one you're reading from
Yeah,
Jackson's point of view. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe I'll go in that direction.
you could. Um,
Yeah, but
but I wonder, what can
yeah.
we help listeners who might be thinking there's so much advice and there's so many videos out there, especially if you're on Book Talk, of do this, don't do that. This is popular. This isn't. This is a trend. This is what we like. You want to write something that's popular, but do we pay attention to trends, or do we just write what we want? I don't
Yeah.
want people to get so lost into like, oh my gosh, billionaire is coming up. I better write a billionaire romance, you
By the
know?
time you do, it'll be gone. Like,
That's what I
I
was.
just I think at the end of the day, you have to weigh it, but be true to yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're gonna read the book 1,000 times. So
Mhm.
don't jump ship from a genre you enjoy writing or subgenre, whether that's romance, to see if you can hit somewhere else. I think you have to have joy in it first. Um, and then I also think that nothing ever really dies. It will come back. Everything's cyclical. One minute it is vampires. The next minute it's not. Now they're making a comeback. One minute it'll be billionaire. The next minute it won't. Everything's cyclical. And I think everything too is unique because you write it. So to me, I feel like it's just a lot of noise and it's noise to consider, but it's not noise to make decisions.
Right. And I would say after your one or two books and now what do I write? I think it's always good to do some research. And that helps you manage your expectations, because if your passion project is something that's not quite as popular and it's very niche, then you have to tailor your marketing a little different. Is it going to hit the bestseller list? It may not. But if it's making you happy and bringing you joy, go for it. Now, if your goal is generating an income, kind of what we talked about last month, then you may want to do a research and see there's some things that are trends, and they will have their moment for a really long time. I think, do your homework, but at the end of the day, you have to write what you love and what you would want to read.
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. So I have this, since we're talking about tools, romance isn't just fantasy, right? It's packed with real world tools, right? That we were talking about earlier. But what tools do you think romance normalizes or teaches really well? Because I've got a couple of bullet points that I think it does, but I'm curious as to your thoughts on it. So what about communication tools? Do you think romance normalizes or teaches that really well?
It depends on the romance. I think there's something
Yeah.
you can learn from reading a romance where they're not communicating very well. I think we've all learned that readers do not like the misunderstanding in the 3rd act.
Miscommuni
Yeah, the miscommunication, misunderstanding that could be cleared up with the simple act of communication,
Mhm,
and readers don't like that. I think, romance can teach you how to communicate better, but
mhm.
also how to, when something is just such a silly misunderstanding, not to put a bunch of emotion behind it.
Right, right. Because I think the miscommunication trope, the only way it pays off for me as a reader is when there's so much emotion behind it as they're yelling and someone backs off and says, "Wait, what are you talking about?" And then that person explains, and then it's no longer miscommunication. But I can't have it yell, 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 go to a totally different scene and not address it.
Yeah.
That will drive me nuts. Or the he said, she said, and they just never talk to each other. I'm like, well, that's not even a relationship, right? Or the beginning of a relationship. So that drives me batty. One of the other ones, does it teach emotional literacy, do you think?
Again, I think it can. I think depending on the emotional literacy of the characters and depending on the kind of romance. I mean, I think what you and I are doing are trying to do that. I read one, I didn't even get past like the second chapter.
I know, I'm like 2nd chapter, 3rd, I'm out if I don't like it.
Well, I mean, this girl broke into this man's house to take a bubble bath. And when he came home, she was like, "What's your problem? You broke into this man's house. He's very upset and angry." And she's just sitting there, "So, can you get out of my bathroom?" And it's just like, this person has the emotional literacy and boundaries of like a peanut. There's no way a man would fall in love with this person because I can't. And even if he did and he was my friend, I'd be like, "What are you doing?" So I
Yeah.
think I think it can, especially if you're in that phase of your life where you're learning about that. But,
Yeah, for readers, I think there's an opportunity there depending on what you're reading. But I also think, and I know Willow Winters talks about this a lot with her dark romance, how it really heals a lot of trauma victims that are reading the trauma that they may have gone through or something similar, that it can be quite cathartic and healing for them. So I do think that there's tie-ins to that for readers. So I do think romance normalizes that a lot more than other genres. One thing that I like talking about, and we'll definitely have to do this in After Dark, is boundaries and consent. Because I don't think any other genre really addresses that the way romance does. And I do think, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on this, I think they're going to be similar, but current romance addresses boundary and consent way better than it did in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s because it was just take me most of the time versus talking. And I also think sometimes, though, boundaries and consent can slow down a romance. So I kind of get why it was that way because it is hard to write. But what are your thoughts around that?
yeah, and that's something I had to learn. Had an alpha reader say with one of my first drafts, "Okay, you have a lot of consent questions in here, which is good, but I think you just need one at the right spot." And then readers are okay with it. I was blown away when I started reading today's romances versus
Yes.
yesteryear's romance.
Yeah.
And things that I was reading, there was always a pause, and either one is asking, about where's your boundary and do you consent to this? And then there's also, hey, what about protection? So it seems like where's your boundaries? Do you consent? And let's address protection, birth control, some sort of care of our bodies so that it's not just a free for all. And I was like, wow, that's wild that they're adding this in. I think
Yeah.
it's fantastic. It's not, it just was something that was so new, but I definitely think today's romance are healthier in that way.
Yeah. I think it normalizes it
Mhm.
and it helps people that aren't comfortable see that it's everyday language
Right.
now.
Yeah.
It's an important language too. I think it's harder. Well, for me, just understanding the whole aspect of sexuality, a woman is accepting someone into their body. They should know. They should be protecting themselves, you know? So I do think it's important, not just because I have daughters, but it does certainly broaden that scope for me because I do think they should feel empowered in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then what about attachment styles? And when I say that, it's
Yeah,
like,
what how are
yeah.
you defining attachment styles? Because I admit that that's not something that I like, "Oh, yeah, I automatically know what those exactly are." But
Yeah, and
what
what I meant by that in my my quick little bullet point, is so attachment styles aren't always healthy. So I was thinking mostly around like 50 Shades of Grey. I think that attachment style was so unhealthy. It was almost abusive, but his character her character growth was her coming into her own sexuality and being comfortable, but she's taking him along the path of getting out of his trauma, which he wouldn't even recognize that he had. However you feel about 50 Shades of Grey. I do think attachment styles are not something I want normalized in romance, but it's very common in our day and lives, like people who attach themselves codependently. I think you did with Roxanne with her previous
Mhm.
relationship, not with Duke, not in the current state. So it was coming out of an attachment style that set her in a trauma response and then how she was getting out of it. I think that happens a lot in romance as I've been reading it, but I didn't recognize it at first until I was just kind of, really responding to these types of questions, right? Of attachment styles, but I do think that I don't necessarily want that normalized in romance because I am a go for love and make it healthy, as much as possible, but I do think it's something you have to consider too, because if you're writing something darker, you do want that to be quite clear.
Well
Anything else you wanna talk about with regards to tools and just
well,
kicking off romance and
yeah, let's
how we
just
use it?
summarize, what are your 3 takeaways from this episode that you think are important?
Well, I've said it before in our last episode. I think the romance genre is highly undervalued, that it's used so much in relationship building and character development. So for me, I think that us just talking about the different tools we use, we just talked about attachments. I've never heard anybody talk about attachments. We talked about love languages and we've talked about the different tools to be used and just, trends and things of that nature. I think if you're in different genres, it all speaks to the same thing. In developing your characters drive story, and these different tools can be used in those genres as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's my big takeaway. What about you?
When you're thinking about writing romance or adding it as a subgenre, I think you should do some research. I had to voraciously start reading romance novels. Today's romance novels.
Yeah,
There was so many wild romances in the
yeah,
80s and 90s, and today's romance is completely different. So, I had to read to understand what personalities are in today's romance that readers like. When you're setting out to do this, do your research, but don't get caught up in everything because at the end of the day, you you want to fulfill reader expectation, but you still want to be writing the things that you love to read and write, right?
right.
Right. So,
Absolutely. And you might have to carve your own path, and it
yeah,
depends on what your marketing
no,
goals
and it's
are too,
absolutely
right?
that's
So,
a whole other March is for marketing.
okay.
And
All right, let's talk personal updates. What you're doing at the moment, maybe what you're watching, a fun viral moment, Miss Threads lady. Anything going on?
um, here's from Threads. So there's changes coming to Threads which people don't like, and
Oh.
well, they're gonna be more ads. The ads have already started to pop up, but of course, Meta has to make money off this, so the ads are coming, which is gonna ruin everything. But it's interesting, an author asked the other day, "Hey, should I put my videos on here?" And so many responses like, "Nope, this is not a place for videos. We don't want videos here. We don't want
Mm,
pictures here." It really is a words app. And I've said that before, but it just keeps getting confirmed. Threads has become the place that helps get space from all the pictures and videos and sound. It's just conversations that go viral. But what's been so fun to see is all the brands that are coming in and trying to get in on kind of how Wendy's does their social media. You've read tweets from Wendy's, right? So hilarious. Snarky, Cassie in your face. Oh my
Sounds
gosh.
like totally up my alley.
Wendy's is the take no prisoners. So follow Wendy's everywhere. Also follow TSA. Hilarious jokes, puns, they show off the pictures of, like, what people try to smuggle on, but then have this, like, super cute explanation about why you shouldn't be carrying a knife in your shoe or hiding drugs in your peanut butter. So,
Sounds great.
TSA Calm is it's the close third. So Calm, the app, is has become everyone's bestie on Threads, and they show up
Interesting.
on posts and make these like really fun antidotes. So, and I will just say for the record, Calm responded to one of my posts. So did Orida, the fry company, and Maxwell, the tape company. I felt like, oh my gosh,
You've made it.
PBS also is getting in on this action. So it's just been interesting how the brands are not trying to sell. What they're doing is trying to have a viral, fun, snarky comment. And then that's driving people for more clicks on their brand.
Oh, that's
That's the
funny.
new level of marketing. And I have said this before that sometimes it's not about you just constantly pushing your book out there. How can you funnel people back to your website, back to your other products with a really wonderfully tailored reply? So, something to think about. But yes,
Yeah.
that's what's happening in the world of threads. What about you?
Um, so my latest book launched,
Yeah,
Keep It Sweet Conspiracy. And I've been looking at the reviews because I'm a reviewer. I like seeing what they are, and they've been so good. So I'm like tickled pink about it, that it's going really well. So I'm super excited. And I am editing my first book in the next series actively right now. So I'm into firefighters and it is fun. I had my edits and they were just sitting and it was time. I have to get rolling. And I'm super excited cuz I made the decision to move forward with the audiobook. So,
it's
yeah,
great. That's
I'm
so
excited
awesome.
about them. Yeah.
Yay. Cool. All
All
right.
right, let's do our hot seat topic.
This is coming to you from conversation card from Lumatory. This one. Would you rather be lost at sea or in the desert?
Ugh.
Thought provoking.
Mhm. I think I'd rather be lost at sea.
Really?
Even though I do get seasick. I just if it's just desert for miles, I just don't know how I would survive. And at least lost at sea, I picture myself in a boat.
Right.
I couldn't
Yeah.
just be floating. So I feel like I have a chance to at least fish. I have a chance to at least have coverage from the elements, like I don't know. I feel like I'd have more of a chance at
Right.
survival.
I guess it depends on the kind of desert. If it's like the desert where I am now in Arizona, I'm like, okay, I'd rather be lost in the desert because even though it's hot and there's just endless miles of like brush and nothing, you could possibly still make a shelter and there's variations in your day. But
Too.
then there's, I think, thinking of your sanity too, there's at least differences. If you're lost at sea, I think the motion would make me insane. I think that
I think I
constant
would just get used to it.
I think I'd go nuts.
Rock
I
me
think
like a
I'd, like,
baby.
I don't know, eat a spider or something. Yes.
I love it.
Not
All
think
right.
I don't wanna eat bugs, but there you have it. Heard it here first.
Me either. All right. Thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps with visibility. Next week, we're talking with Danica Bloom, romance writer and community speaker. I'm really excited about this. And if you're interested in catching the exclusive, The Author Next Door After Dark this month, we're breaking down the barriers and talking why spice works or doesn't work in books. Make sure and sign up for our newsletter to get access. Till next time, keep writing, keep doing.
We'll see ya.
Bye. We're so glad you joined us for this episode of The Author Next Door.
Writing is a long game, and it's one best played with community, curiosity, and a little grace for yourself along the way.
Keep showing up, keep learning, and keep telling stories only you can tell.
We'll see you next week, right here next door.